Jewish people and to the Jewish people, argued that Judaism is primarily a religion. It's a culture. It's not a nationality. Jews are not a nation, and therefore they're not entitled to a homeland. There are Canadian Jews, and there are American Jews. There are Australian Jews and Russian Jews, Italian Jews and French Jews. Judaism is a religion. You could be in any country and be a citizen and still be a Jew. They're not entitled to a homeland. Herzog, Rabbi Dr. Herzog, Yaakov Herzog, wanted to know which nations do constitute a real nation. And he gave the example of the Greeks, the Italians. Those were real nations. The Jews were a fake pseudo-nation. They've been exiled for much of their history. They've been citizens in other countries for most of their long history. They're not a nation. They're a religion. And Dr. Herzog responded to Professor Toynbee. And the illustration that he gave, Rabbi Lau said, was the following illustration. He said, imagine for a moment, indulge my hypothesis, 3 Olympic airplanes come down from heaven. The first lands in Athens. And an old man comes out. You look at him and you could see that he has used his brain for deep scholastic and philosophical inquiry. And the man in the airport comes up to greet him and he says, welcome to Greece, what is your name? And the man says, my name is Socrates. He says, Socrates, have you ever been here before? He says, shame on you. You don't know who Socrates is? He says, I don't know. Who are you? He says, tell me, how is the Greek Empire doing? He says, the Greek Empire? The Greek Empire, Yizgadal v'Yizgadash. 2,400 years ago. Where have you been, Mr. Socrates? There's no Greek Empire. You mean the empire that Alexander the Great built is gone? Hey, of course it's gone. It's a relic of history. He says when people hear the word Greece, they don't sense the weight of the world. He says, no. He says, so what is Greece? He says, Kama country, a Nebachdika country, a member of NATO. He says, what's NATO? Explains to him what NATO is. He says, how is Greek philosophy doing? He says, Greek philosophy, a few professors still talk about it. He says, what do you talk about in cafeterias, in salons, in restaurants? You don't talk about the teachings of Socrates. You don't talk about Plato, the Republic. You don't talk about Aristotle. He says, nah. So what do you talk about? iPhone 7, iPhone 10, iPhone 11. Take me to the Acropolis. He says, for $9, I'll show you the remnants. Take me to Mount Olympus. There's nothing there. Take me to Zeus. Nobody worships at Zeus anymore. What do you worship? The Greek Orthodox Church. What's the Greek Orthodox Church? He says, where have you been? You haven't heard of Christianity? Socrates says, no. No such a thing in my days. What is Christianity? The man says, I'll make it brief. Every Jewish boy who grows up in a Jewish home with a Jewish mother is taught the same thing by his mother. Not only is he God's gift to humanity, but he is actually God himself. That's the message every good, healthy, functional, confident, stress-free Jewish mother imparts to her child. However, most Jewish boys at some point or another are lucky enough to marry a Jewish wife. And within a few months, usually a few weeks, and if you have a great wife, a few hours, she makes it clear to you, not only are you not God, not only are you not God's gift to humanity, but the question is if you're entitled to have an opinion. And most Jewish men, for the rest of their lives, are in therapy, trying to negotiate between the perspective of his wife and the perspective of his mother. I mean, that's what most of us, more or less, are dealing with. Let's call a spade a spade. He says, that's true about a lot of us. He says, but Yoshke never got married. Yeshu never got married. So what his mother taught him about himself, he held on to. And billions embraced it. Socrates looks at him and says, why aren't you speaking ancient Greek? He says, very few people know ancient Greek, some great scholars. What do you speak? Modern Greek. Socrates looks at him and says, this is not my Athens. Bye-bye. And he leaves. A second airplane lands in Rome. A man emerges, wounds on his chest. You could see he's a great statesman. Person in the airport comes up to greet him and says, welcome to Rome, what is your name? The man says, Julius Caesar. He says, from the Caesar salad. He says, you moron. In my days you could have been beheaded for such a comment. Tell me, how is the Roman Empire doing? He says, the Roman Empire? It's gone, obsolete. Call the Chevra Kadisha. 1700 years, tribute to your friend Constantine. There's no Roman Empire. He says, you mean when people hear the word Rome, dread doesn't set into their hearts? He says, no. So what are we? You're a city in Italy. What's Italy? A member of NATO. Take me to the Colosseum. For $8, I'll take you to the remnants. Take me to my gladiators. For $9, I'll show you the excavations. Take me to the Senate and the steps of the Senate where I uttered those fateful words, et tu brute, then Caesar falls. He says, friend, there's no Senate and no steps of the Senate. Take me to Jupiter. Nobody worships a Jupiter anymore. What do you worship? We have the Vatican. Caesar says, what's the Vatican? He says, Catholicism. He says, what's Catholicism? The Pope. What's the Pope? Who's the Pope? He says, you don't know about the Pope? No, I don't know about the Pope. He says, this is the Christianity. He says, what's Christianity? He says, here he goes. Every Jewish boy grows up with a Jewish mother. She tells him he's God. He gets married. His wife explains the truth. Yoshka never got married. Julius Caesar says to him, why don't you speak Latin? Why are you speaking Italian? He says, who speaks Latin? A few professors speak Latin. Very few people speak Latin. He says, what are you guys known for? He says, pizza and pasta. Julius Caesar looks at him and says, this is not my Rome. I'm out of here. Bye-bye. He leaves. A third airplane lands in Tel Aviv, in the Ben Gurion airport. An old man comes out of the plane and somebody in the airport comes up and says two words, Shalom Aleichem. And he responds, Aleichem Shalom. And the man in the airport says, Ma Shimcha, what is your name? And the old man says, my name is Moshe. My name is Moses. And the man in the airport says, hey, Gamani Moshe! Ami Moshe, mi Tbilisi, Georgia. I made Aliyah 7 months ago. They already ripped me off. And by the way, I'm looking for a loan and an investor. Maybe you can help me. I'm starting a multi-billion-dollar company. If you come in with me now, you'll make good money. And if not, I need a loan also. Moshe! What brings you here? Where were you born? He says, I was born in Egypt. Why are you here? I'm coming home. Were you ever here before? Never. Why do you call it home? He says, 40 years I tried to get to this place. I walked and walked through the wilderness. I was almost at the border. I never made it here. Trust me, I gave my blood and sweat and tears for this place. I could call it home. And Moshe from Tbilisi, Georgia says, welcome home, my friend. An old man, Moshe, says, I have an awkward question. You know, in heaven, they don't feed you. I'm starving. Any food in Israel? He says, food? That's what we do. In fact, the theme of every Jewish holiday, they explained to me, is they tried to kill us. We won. Now let's go eat. Moshe says, I understand, but I have an uncomfortable question. We have these laws of kosher. You think they have any kosher in Israel? He says, oh, now I'm starting not to like you. You think you're holier than everybody else? Kosher? You're laughing? Here in the airport we have 90 restaurants. So you shouldn't go 10 feet without stopping to eat. You ever went to Ben Gurion Airport? Every 10 feet is another cafe, restaurant, pizza shop, Chinese time. And almost everyone is kosher. And every type of kosher. Glatt kosher, kosher, semi-glatt kosher, mahadrim, mina mahadrim, rabbanut, badatz, Rabbi Landa, Eidachredis, right? Every type, Thai kosher, French kosher, Italian kosher, Japanese kosher, Vietnamese kosher, Brazilian, every kosher, Canadian kosher. Moshe says one more thing. I was in a rush. You know, my friends Socrates and Caesar were rushing to see their beautiful countries. I forgot something I really need. He says, what? We have everything in Israel. Everything. You want ice cream? What do you want? Lafa. He says, no. I forgot in heaven my talit and my tefillin. You have these here in Israel? He says, now I'm really starting not to like you. You think you're the only one, huh? Of course we have it. In fact, he pulls up his sleeve. He says, take a look. Here. Just now the Chabadniks kidnapped me in the airport. They just abducted me. 2 minutes. You Jewish. Just 2 minutes. Don't worry, you won't miss. The pilot will wait for you. And they wrapped me up. They adorned me with the phylacteries. You go in there, you have talit, you have tefillin, they'll be happy to give it to you. Moshe says, wow, it's amazing. And he comes down, and he goes into the airport, and he goes into the shul over there, the synagogue there, there's talit and tefillin, and a father is sitting with his son. But as he walks in, the young man from the airport kisses something on the door, and the old man says, what are you kissing? He says, you don't know. Shame on you. This is a mezuzah. He says, you know what a mezuzah is? Of course I know what a mezuzah is. Who doesn't know what a mezuzah is? 3,000 years ago, there was a man, Moses, who told us on every doorpost, you put the parchment inside a container with a few portions of the Holy Torah. And Moshe kisses the mezuzah, and as he walks in, there's a father sitting with a son. The father and the son both open a book we call Chumash. The father tells the son, let's read together. And they read together the following words from the Torah. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. And God spoke to Moses, saying, and 2 large pearls, which you may call tears, roll down the holy face of Moses as he observes this scene in Israel today. And Professor Jacob Herzog turns to Professor Toynbee and concludes, if Socrates or Julius Caesar returned today to Athens or to Rome, what would they find? They would not discover the same culture or the same philosophy, the same religion or the same values, the same language or the same lifestyle. All they would find would be the same geographic soil. The location would be the same, but nothing else would be the same. If Moses returned today to Israel, what would he discover? The same language and the same values, the same God and the same faith, the same culture and the same lifestyle, the same mitzvot and the same belief system, the same texts and the same ideas, the same Shabbat that they have observed 3,000 years ago, they still celebrate. And the same ram's horn that gave Jews migraine headaches 3 millennia ago, still gives them headaches 3 millennia later. And the same stale matzah that they ate leaving Egypt is still around and it's still stale. And when you eat it, you can taste that it's 3,000 years old, at least in most seders that I attended. The same lulav and the same willow, the same Torah scroll, the same texts, the same, gotta have it, the same tzitzis, the same fringes, the same tefillin, the same arguments. We're still arguing about the same things. Professor Herzog says to Toynbee, the Greeks and the Italians are a nation, and the Jews are not a nation. Greece is the homeland of the Greeks. Italy is the homeland of the Italians. But Israel is not the homeland of the Jewish people. Professor Toynbee, if the Jewish people don't constitute a nation, what does constitute a people?